Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is time for Tuesday Live. We've been doing this. We're in our 9th year, so I so appreciate you who've been hanging out with us. And it's just such a fun time to be able to share our faith and the things that God is doing. And the whole point of this show is to just talk as women about the things that we deal with, to be encouraging, to be uplifting, and how do we walk in our faith every day. You know, it's about walking it, not just talking it, right? So joining me today is my beautiful co-host, Nancy White. So welcome, Nancy.
Oh, thank you, Delinda. I can't believe how fast our seasons are going, but I'm so grateful to have more time with you today.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I'm glad all of you decided to join us because it is a choice. And as you know, I talk about choices all the time because it is so powerful when you realize how many things that you actually have the choice. And we have a choice. We don't have a choice what happens in the world, but we definitely have a choice in how we handle everything. And that's part of what we're talking about today. And our subject is anxiety. You can choose, to live with it or to live without it. And did you know that? I was surprised when I saw this, that 1 out of 4 women in the US have suffered anxiety disorder this year, which is just a reminder that you're not alone. And we are going to just give you some ways to deal with that because you can usually feel it when it's coming on. The world is going to tell you to take a pill, but we're going to tell you to take Jesus. So he says, peace I leave with you, my peace, y'all. Peace is what he said in John 14:27. So Nancy, why don't you kick us off and just get into our subject?
Well, thank you so much again, Delinda. And yes, especially women, we go through so many things and with life, all those challenges. But you're right, we're not alone. There's 300 million people around the world that go through this challenge all the time. And, we know the pressures of life. And I think it's interesting because God said, he never told us it was going to be easy. He just said he'd never leave us. And so,
right.
But it is one of those things that when we start feeling that coming up from our guts, usually, that we can recognize those little symptoms of what anxiety feels like. And we know that it can either be fed or we can nip it in the bud. And we're going to talk about nipping it in the bud today, because God knows everything that we're going through. And for myself too, I can just sort of just stop for a moment and just think, reflect back on God's faithfulness and his goodness. And yes, we've all gone through those times, those trying times, those testing times, but did God see us through? And we're still here. We wake up, every day and going, yay, I'm back. And God's goodness is so good and is so faithful. But I think some of the things that we hear a lot about is just like you're talking about. Oh my goodness. Some people get brainwashed about, this is a disorder. This is whatever that's going on. It's called life. We have the ups and we have the downs. We have the all arounds. But, when we start going through those tests and trials and tribulations, some days you and I both know are a lot more intense than others. You just have to stop and breathe. And I heard a great analogy about anxiety, Delinda, and carrying, those burdens and everything. It was just like, you've got this backpack of rocks and you've got, this heavy weight on you. And then all of a sudden somebody comes by and they said, can I help you carry that? Now we're the ones that are going to say, sure. And we're going to take it off and say, yes. And that's exactly what Jesus does every single time that we call upon him. And he says, I'm here to help carry the burden or take the burden. Are you willing to give it to me? And I think that's one of our heart attitudes. Again, it's that mindset and that heart is that, you know what? We're not in control. Us women that think that we're always in control.
We're so not.
We're so not, but acknowledging where our help comes from. And And I think there's a lot more to anxiety also, Delinda, is even our state of being. It's our healthy self-care. It's taking care of ourselves. Because you and I both have been through areas and times when we felt more vulnerable, when we weren't feeling as healthy and strong as we normally do. And we have to recognize and acknowledge that. We have to know that when we're taking care of ourselves, then we are going to be stronger to be able to come back and just say, yes, I have the ability to give it over. Because don't you know, when we feel weak and pewy or whatever, we just start imagining all the things that we need to do to fix it and to take care of it. But there's times that we get to call on each other. That's why we're here. We're not alone. We're here. God has got us with amazing people like yourself and people that he's put in my life, that when, we do have those weaker days or whatever, we can just say, you know what, call a friend, get in touch with somebody and say, I would just really be grateful if you could just pray for me today. And, again, pride gets in the way sometimes. And we think, I'm good. I'm fine. Don't
Well,
women
that's
like
our
it?
answer to everything, right? Oh, I'm fine.
I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine.
That might be the first clue that there's something wrong.
Absolutely. But finding other great ways too to combat anxiety is huge. There's amazing essential oils. There's amazing foods that we are consuming that are either going to build us up or make us again weaker. And I think it's really interesting researching, for all these years, it all keeps coming back, Delinda, to the same good healthy foods, whether it's for maintaining your weight, maintaining your health, whatever it is. And and I thought, how much multitasking can this do? But it's the same thing for anxiety. There's certain foods that trigger, there's certain foods that with proteins and good omegas and different essentials and things that keep us built up. But I think especially in our country, you can see, I don't know how many different medications and choices you have. Oh my gosh. And then you start looking at those side effects and things. I'm sitting there going, you know what? I personally believe medicine has a great place. But I do know that taking care of that self-care first and foremost and making those choices naturally are so much better. And again, give it a chance. So anyways, but
Right.
anyways,
Yeah, and I think that's really true. And we tend, okay, so I'll say me, I've always, in the past, okay, my verbiage is changing to myself because I'm firm believer in self-talk. And most of my life said, I used to eat when I was happy, eat when I'm sad, eat when I'm nervous, whatever. And so the food, and of course, what I would choose would be what we call comfort foods, which are just the opposite of what we should be eating. Let me just have some ice cream or some popcorn or whatever that is. And I'm just finding that certainly what I eat, because Nancy, since our the last time you were on and we talked about health and food, God has, this is not, well, I probably should do a whole show on it, but God has totally saved me from my cravings and everything. I mean, I just like threw my hands up and said, I am too tired of fighting this, Lord. You got to take it. And I don't know, I didn't even know that I was holding it on. And I think, like you say, maybe it's the one thing I thought I could control. Yeah, I controlled it right. Eating too much. But I think it's good too to look at the root. I think, when we look at anxiety and worry, I just do. The Lord showed me this a number of years ago that worry, anxiety, I mean, it's the same thing, and faith cannot reside in the same space. You cannot be fearful and be faithful at the same time, if that makes any sense to y'all out there. And most of the root, I think the root of most anxiety is fear. fear that we're not good enough, fear that we're not going to have enough, fear that our children are going to fail, whatever, disease, whatever that is, it comes back to fear. And if we just turn that fear over, like you say, why don't we just give him the whole backpack? But we kind of take the rock out and say, here, Lord, you can have this one, but I think I can handle these myself. Don't you think we do that?
We do. We absolutely do. And I think women like to be in control or think we are. And, and we want to make sure that we are guiding and supervising everything that's going on. And so we really are not. But just like you said, oh my gosh, when you start practicing, and it is practice because we're never will be perfect, it's always practicing, giving it over to the Lord and remembering, that he has continuous presence, just like you were talking about, in our lives. And when we were saying, I'm not trusting you, and that's my trigger. So when I start feeling that coming up and anxiety and things that are coming in, I have to stop and I just go, I hear that still small voice. Do you trust me? And that's a yes or a no. And so asking myself that question, do I trust you, Lord? And just stopping. And then and then he starts bringing in the troops. He'll start bringing in the help. He'll start bringing in resources or whatever that we need to assist. And because it's not all about us, even though we think it is, it's always about people that are going to come into our lives, that are going to use their gifts and talents, that are going to be resources, support for us, as well as us for them. And that's what it is. It's community. It's collaboration. It's being together. Like, you've got certain girlfriends, you've got certain people in your life that you call upon. And that's why we're here, because we're not here to do it alone. Absolutely.
And just so many areas of our lives. I don't know why it is that, and I tend to be one that pulls in instead of reaching out. I'm not sure why. Now, I'll reach out to the Lord, but as far as telling other people my stuff, when I'm going through it, I don't tend to. I like, okay, I'm just going to go in. Part of it is self-care. Part of it, I think, it is healthy, but there's that certain place where you just need to reach out to a trusted friend. I mean, like Nancy, I would definitely reach out to you because I know by our friendship that you're a safe place that I could tell you anything and you just love me through it or pray me through it or whatever. And ladies, you need somebody like that or a couple of somebodies in your life. We need the Lord to go to first to listen to him, and we need to go to his word. I mean, his word is where we find what we can pray back to him. Lord, you say you're the peace. You're leaving us your peace. So, Lord, I'm claiming that. I want your peace, praying his word back. And then having those people in your life, like you're saying, the community that you can go to, those special friends who will pray for you. When they say, I'll pray for you, they actually mean it and they will. Right. And
and you hit the nail on the head, Delinda. You said, first and foremost, go to the Lord. And that's what we need to do. And most women like to, I'm not going to say gossip, but they like to go talk or throw their, whatever out. And first and foremost, when things are coming, challenges are coming into our lives, that's when we just need to stop and just go to the Lord and say, Lord, I can't do it. And I know that you can. And would you please guide and direct me? And if I need to zip it and not say a word, and it needs to be you and me, Lord, to be working it out, then we have to be obedient. And then that's the things that when he brings in the help, women are so great. Oh, I'm good. We were talking about, I'm fine. Just, but if you've prayed about it and God's bringing somebody into your life or a resource, it's like you're rejecting a gift. It's like saying you're giving it back going, I'm sorry, I don't want to open it. I'm good.
I don't need that help. I don't need that. And
but it is.
I think too, continuing down that road, but on a next step practical thing, I think so. When you're looking, I'm going to go back to the fear part. What is it? Can you identify? Because sometimes we just need to do a little thought, take some deep breaths, as you mentioned. I find that is so helpful. That the whole breathing thing, I've really breathing in and cleansing, cleansing breath. But, what is it that you're believing that's right now? It could be when you're getting ready to go into that's feeding that fear. What is it? Write it down. Writing things down is so beneficial. So what is that thing that you're believing is true? So I don't know, let's pick a financial thing. So maybe you're in a financial crisis, something's going on. So name that. And the bottom line is, I hate to say, is that you're not trusting that God's got this. If it's a financial thing, pray, give it to the Lord. I mean, yes, get up and go to work if you're working. If you don't have a job, do the things that you need to do, but don't sit there and worry and let it just eat up at you. That anxiety that truly is like a cancer eating away in your body. It's a definite physical reaction as well as mental. So it does, like you were talking about, the physical body, even what you eat. Go out. Sometimes it's a matter of change your location. If you're sitting in your favorite, chair and just boo-hooing or, whining or crying, whatever it is, change the location. Get up out of the chair, maybe go around the block, walk around the block, or turn on your favorite rock and roll music. Turn on praise music, that's even better. But you have to change the environment. You have to change where you are and what you're doing. So then it's easier for your brain to click in and say, oh yeah, I've been here before and God's always been there. So I'm just going to trust that he's going to be there again.
Mm-hmm. It is. And I think anxiety can also be like a warning sign. And just like you're talking about, when you start recognizing it and start acknowledging, that's when you can stop and do something different. Nip it in the bud, do things, whatever it is, because if you don't address it, then it continually, it's like that, it's like acid, it continues to eat or whatever, and it gets into, now it's evolved into depression, now it's involved in, an illness. And so, those are the things that if we don't address something, it's like the hymn. The people don't even have hymns anymore, but you pull the thread on your hymn and all of a sudden it starts unraveling and all of a sudden now the whole hymn's down. It's the same kind of concept.
It's a great illustration. You're right.
It is. If we can tell, that is a warning sign or a warning signal that we just need to do something to make a change. And there's nothing that's going to change without change.
Without change, right? And I actually have learned to love change, because that's it's like, yeah, because that's when change happens. If you want something different in your life, we all know, we've heard it 100 million times. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you got. So if you like what you got, that's great. Keep doing it. But a lot of the time we get restless. We want something different. We want our life to, in different places. And the only way it happens is by that change. And I think that is that same concept like you're talking about with anxiety and worry. My mother knows this, so I'm not talking out of school. My mother is a worry wart. Oh my goodness. I mean, that's how she's been her whole life. And I have been trying so hard in the last 10 years, especially like, Mother, it's going to be okay. You don't have to worry. Well, no, I have to worry. And she said, well, I've been doing this. She's now 96. Okay. I'm not going to change after 96 years. I said, well, I'm going to keep trying. So, but it is, I see her get that. And then it becomes so obsessed that she can't do something else and she can't, it really becomes immobilizing.
It paralyzes her. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. And so, I've now found a few ways of helping her get past that when she's, gets in that place.
Good for you. And that's great for you to recognize too, Delinda, because that helps you to know what not to do when you get to be 96.
I know. So she told, this has nothing to do with anxiety, but she told me when she was here, for those of you who know, this time last year, my mother was in rehab for a stroke and then came home to live with me for 6 months. And God just so healed her. She's back in Arizona in an independent living facility. And I'm going there tomorrow to see her. So a year later, she's living on her own, and it's just amazing when I just watch how God has worked in her life. But during one of our trips to therapy, I think it was, we were in the car, and she said, "Yeah, Jesus told me I'm going to live to be 110." I was like, "Whoa, mother!" So we'll track it, you guys, depending on how long God keeps our show going here, and see where where she is and what she's doing. But it's so great. I mean, I'm just so grateful for that. And I think it's important to look at God's faithfulness through whatever. I have this wonderful story of my mother, and whether I have her another 6 months or a year or until she's 110, it's all time that I didn't know I was even going to have,
Yeah.
because of her stroke, and we didn't know. But when you look at your life and look back at all the times when God has been faithful, when you were having financial problems, maybe if you had health challenges, maybe there's been deaths in your family, everybody has had something or multiple things. And if you can look back through the lens of God's faithfulness, that's what gets you through the next challenge, because then you say, well, Lord, you brought me through this and you brought me through that. And it's being thankful and then praising him. Thank you for doing that. And you, such an amazing God. Call on his names. He's the provider and the protector, and he's our shelter. And when you start doing that, y'all, you cannot be anxious and worried. You can't do the both at the same time.
Not for very long anyways, but just like that over the last several years I took care of my husband going through Lewy body dementia, and every single day was a challenge, more challenging, or whatever. And just there's times when you're in those kinds of pressures and those kinds of circumstances that holding on to the Lord is the only way that you get through each and every day. But then, just like you said, you look back and, at the whole picture, and you see God's goodness and his faithfulness and his mercy. And so I think that's one of the things as we continually mature, is that we do have that little bit more history. And it is a little challenging for ladies, especially, going through those younger years, especially raising children. Oh my gosh. It's like children really raise us, but we are going through those times. But when we learn things and we can apply them, and then we can share them again with others, so they may not have to go through as much junk that we went through sometimes. I think that is one of the best gifts, Delinda, that especially like you give women in your world, and you're sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, and understanding, but more than anything, you're pointing every single one back to the Lord, and you're making sure that they know where their help comes from.
Because again, he is the source. He is the source of all of those things. And I don't remember where it is. I'm not as good at remembering the addresses of scripture. But where it says, what we've gone through, in the comfort that we've received, we can then give to others as they're going through things, because nothing is unique in the world. So we've all gone through different things. And, the journey that you had with your husband, just, being there, and you understand a different level of the caretaking because of what you went through. And I'm sure that God is going to use you in helping others who may be going through, or, whatever level that they're at. And that's why he puts us here together to share the journey, both the ups and the downs, for sure.
Absolutely. And it is. And it's always just, when in doubt, then, you wait, and you wait to hear. And, we're such fast pace in this world, and we want to fix it, immediately. Fast food, fast everything.
Right.
But when in doubt, you just stop and you wait upon the Lord.
Mhm. The study that I'm doing, experiencing God, I think I brought it up in about every show because it's a powerful study, and it's all of how God talks to you through things. But we always hear the expression of, I remember think of my mother saying, "Don't just stand there, do something." Like if we're trying to, she has this day to clean the house or whatever, and we're lollygagging, just don't just stand there, do something. But when it comes to the Lord, and what Henry Blackaby says in this study is, don't just do something, wait. Because we want to go, just exactly what you're saying. We want to go and do, well, maybe while I'm waiting for God to tell me in this, I'll just go ahead and sign up and do this. Well, then pretty soon we get ourselves so busy that it's hard to hear his voice because we're doing the busy thing. Or now he has a special someone he wants us to meet, or whatever he would like us to do. But because we've now booked our schedule up, getting busy waiting, right? That we now don't have that calendar time. He wants to bring some interruptions into our life. He wants us to do some things and make a difference all the time. He's out there working and bringing people to put in our path, whether it's for our business or someone that just needs a listening ear. But we can't hear it when we're just trying to fill up our calendar and keep busy.
I agree completely. And it's perfectly okay to do nothing.
It is. Well, I know that you have an appointment. You're going to need to go. And I just thank you so much for being with me again. I love it that we're getting to see you about once a month. So it's so fun to have you here, and looking forward to that continuing on. So friends, anxiety may come knocking at your door, but you don't have to let it in. You can live with it, or you can choose to live without it. And you get to make that choice today, because if you recall, we have choices in everything. Jesus chose the 12 disciples, and just like that, he's chosen you. He's chosen to give you peace and joy and happiness in your life, but you have to choose to accept that gift. So are you going to choose Jesus, or are you going to choose to have anxiety? It's up to you. Bye, everybody. We will see you next week. Bye, Nancy. Thanks so much.